What's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Processing Blue, where, yes, we process blue for you. I'm Alex Zietlow, and I'm joined by Mike Kaye, and we're Carolina Panthers beat writers for the Charlotte Observer. And Mike, are you still in Dallas?
I am not. I appreciate you checking in. I've been checked in on by quite a few people, but I made it out. That was a very long 2 days and 22 hours at an airport.
That is insane. I was kind of starting to think that you were like inspired by Tom Hanks in The Terminal. I think you might have even tweeted that out, so maybe that is just a cheap joke. But I do truly remember being like, I wonder if he's like building community there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I did discover that California Pizza Kitchen is in business in some form or fashion there. Right before my flight got canceled on, I believe it was Monday night, I had an 11:30 dinner at the bar area of the CPK, and boy, was that a tough thing to swallow when I got canceled. So was the pizza, to be honest with you. It was not that good. Um, Shouts to CPK. It was tough. But by that time, I was like, the roads were all icy. It was snowy. It was like, do I drive out of here for 3 hours to spend 4 hours at a hotel? And so I basically just walked the Dallas airport for like 7 hours. I got my steps in.
No, that's awesome. It was really funny to hear about this latest travel expedition that you went on. The reason why you were in Dallas was because you did a great job covering the Shrine Bowl and its practices for us um, at the Charlotte Observer. You also got a really cool exclusive interview with General Manager Dan Morgan, who I'm sure we'll discuss that discussion quite a bit over the next 30 minutes or so. We'll also run an interview with Rico Dowdle and Bryce Young into the middle of this. I got a chance to interview them on Radio Row while they're over there in San Francisco right before the Super Bowl, having a bunch of fun. But first, Mike, let's get into some Panthers football. The big news: defensive coordinator Ejiro Evero did not get hired as a head coach, even though, again, he was in the mix for a few head coaching positions this hiring cycle to various teams. That means EJ is back as DC of the Carolina Panthers. Mike, your first thoughts?
I really thought he had a great shot at the Raiders job, based on all the crumbs I was picking up. He is a guy who, in my opinion, will be a better head coach than a coordinator. He just has this way about him. I think he is very assertive. I think he is very convicted in his beliefs, as we see with the defense. And I think if he were able to run his own show, it might look better than being the head coach of the defense. Now, I know everybody gets hired off of their success as a play caller or their positional success, but I think he is a guy who everyone in the league kind of sees he's got the makeup of a head coach. It just will take the right situation. He interviewed with the Atlanta Falcons. He interviewed with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He interviewed twice with the Raiders. And I think had Clint Kubiak turned down the job, I believe that he would have been, if not the backup plan, one of the backup plans. And I think it's just a matter of time. I know Panthers fans have conflicting opinions on him, and I completely understand that. I think the defense kind of falters and succeeds on a really weird basis. He has some unusual quirks with his scheme that aren't necessarily the best visually or productive or most productive. And so I think he's a guy that's going to continue to be polarizing here, but he's back and the staff is going to be back as well.
So when Dave Canales got hired, one of the main things that he iterated in his introductory press conference was there were questions of if EJ will be back, because again, even back in 2024, EJ was getting a lot of attention for head coaching jobs. But one thing that was asked of Dave was, hey, if EJ does come back, is this part of your vision for Panthers football? And he was like, yes. Like, I took this job with EJ as defensive coordinator in mind. Now they're going into year 3. I'm wondering if that is ultimately a good thing. You look at the Eagles, and a program like the Eagles, who has gone through 5 offensive coordinators in 5 years or whatever, and they've had immense success over those 5 years. Nick Sirianni has won at just like a historic clip, basically. How important do you think it is, Mike, that this pairing, this dynamic duo, so to speak, I think that's actually what Dave Canales called him in his introductory press conference. Like, how important is it that they're going into year 3 together? Or am I overstating it a little bit?
I think continuity is important, but it's only important when you have the right mixture. And I think had he gone somewhere else, it would have given them an opportunity to maybe change the scheme, prioritize different positions, reassess what they were doing. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean him returning is a bad thing. I just think every outcome creates an opportunity, and I think they're not going to have the opportunity of what's behind door number 2 right now. Right now, they've got to continue to build this system. We did see some progress once Evero had actual talent on defense.
Right.
They're in position to upgrade inside linebacker. They are in position to upgrade outside linebacker. They're in position to upgrade safety. Those are the 3 immediate needs. And I think they will attack those positions pretty aggressively. Now, how well you think they do that is obviously subjective, but I do think that they will have an eye on those 3 positions. And with a system that a bunch of guys know, it's easier to plug and play these different guys as opposed to switching to a different front, switching to a different philosophy. So I also think something that's going to be lost in all of this stuff for people that are frustrated that EJ is back, the defensive coordinator well was drying up immensely. Like for those who don't know, I pre-write like crazy, and I had gotten a list of 10 to 12 guys that I thought could make sense. By the time the Raiders hired Clint Kubiak, I believe the list was down to like 6. Like, it was Nick Rallis if you wanted somebody completely out of the norm. Joe Casper just got the passing game coordinator for the Eagles. The 2 internal guys, John Cooley and Todd Wash, are still here, obviously. But, like, outside of Jim Schwartz, who are you hiring that's going to excite you? And if you hire Jim Schwartz, you're looking at a wide 9 front, so you are drastically switching up the front. Could have benefited some guys, but also could have hurt some guys as well. And so I think that's something to keep in mind. You never know what's behind door number 2, but when door number 2 is kind of forced upon you and thrust upon you when it's late in the game, that can be difficult.
Yeah, that's really important consideration. Great stuff. Let me toss it to my interview with Bryce Young and Rico Dowdle real quick. Like I mentioned, we were on Radio Row. It is a very hectic time. It's a very loud place that I was interviewing them at. And there was also a lot of people obviously using the Wi-Fi. So if the audio connection isn't perfect, that's why. But I still think you will enjoy it nonetheless. Let's kick it to them. Rico, thank you guys so much for doing this. And thank you for the people at Bounty Paper Towels for making this happen. Bryce, did we just see Bounty Paper Towels in action just now?
Yeah, I've been absolutely clumsy with the, I don't know, PTSD. There's police back here. I was clumsy. Man, weird. I was saying, couldn't be at a better spot. Bounty got me right.
Did y'all avoid the snow in Charlotte this weekend?
Yeah, it was just
No, did you avoid it?
Oh yeah, I was just chilling. Just okay.
Here, y'all got out in the snow a little bit on the kicks. They got a couple of tips out when they was ready to go in. That's on the out, but that's all.
Yeah, Rico, did you do some sledding or like what did the family do?
Try to do some sledding down the driveway. Got a little hill down the driveway. Try to do some sledding, but I was when it got cold and started playing. That's when they had it. So.
Yeah, no, totally. I get that. Well, again, thank you guys for taking this time to do this. I got a couple football related questions and hopefully a couple fun ones as well. Bryce, I want to start with you. We in the media got 2 or 3 days after the season was over. We heard that the Panthers were planning on picking up your 5th-year option. That's keeping you in Carolina through 2027. Did that kind of play out how you expected it to? Can you take me into how that all came together?
Yeah, I try to never really have really any expectations. No, very grateful. Very blessed. Try to take everything one day at a time. But just from my standpoint, I love the Carolinas, the organization. I'm super grateful. And super proud to be a part of the team. So, I want to football continue to do whatever I can to, push myself so we get the best situation. And yeah, I'm grateful to be part of it. Yes.
Yeah. Also, I'm just now noticing. I was like, "Oh, y'all are twinning," but it's literally Bounty apparel that y'all are wearing.
Yeah, that's my wingman. Each other's wingman. So that's what we get about.
That's awesome. Rico, I also wanted to ask you about your off season. You're in a relatively familiar position than you were last year, coming off an 1,000 rushing yard season. You'll be a free agent in March if a deal doesn't get struck before then. How does this February for you compare to last year's February?
Like I said, I'm in a pretty similar situation. So at this point for me, like I'm pretty much just waiting until that wherever that deadline may be, and when they can start negotiating and things like that. And if something do get done before, I do, but I'll just sit back. Me, I'm chilling, enjoying the time with the fam, getting my body and stuff back right, getting ready for next year. But other than that, the AC and everything, they'll take care of the rest of that. So, chill.
Word. Okay, I wanted to ask you guys two questions that I didn't get a chance to ask you during the year that I think could be cool. Rico, you had a premonition right before the Miami Dolphins game, if I remember correctly. You said you told some teammates that you were going to run for 180 yards. You ended up running for over 200, so you kind of shortchanged yourself a bit. Um, have you ever had a premonition like that before? Like, have you ever had a thought like, "Oh, I'm going to do something big this next game," and has it come true like that before?
Yeah, I think that's what you all for me. I'm more of a like saying, speaking, make you come to fruition type of guy. So yeah, I talk a lot honestly, be honest with you. So I feel like probably every game you can ask me, I think, and I'm going out there going, have a big one. That's my goal, or that's what I want to do. So yeah, but so I would definitely say that has happened bad before. I'm always trying to speak about positive, going out there and doing something for us.
I imagine it's happened at AC Reynolds as well while you were over there.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Um, Bryce, I've also been meaning to ask you this past couple years. So we know the story of your first touchdown pass. You throw it to Hayden Hurst, and Hayden Hurst just gets caught up in this emotion and he just chucks it as far as he can into, in the Atlanta Falcons Stadium. And then Andy Dalton very kindly makes it his mission the rest of the game to go track down that football for you. So you have that football, I know. Do you have other footballs just like in, I don't know, in your trophy case in your house or in your locker room that you keep? And where do you store them? How many do you have? Just generally, what about that whole thing?
Yeah, my parents have a set of all like collectibles. Yeah, Sergey balls, birds, and all that from the past. My parents keep all that.
Word. Any football like means something extra special to you? I'm sure that the first NFL touchdown pass means a lot to you.
Yeah, that was cool. I honestly, I'm a I say me personally, I'm not a huge collectible or like memorabilia type of person for my own stuff. But I think for me, I value like the memories more. So it's like I remember who was there. I remember that moment. I remember going to the sideline there. With other Carson Block career, I like after those things. So I think for me, that's kind of for my old stuff, but I hold.
Nice. Do you collect anything else? Like, I don't know, baseball cards. I know you're a basketball guy. Do you collect anything similar to that?
Not really. Not really. Kind of the same thing. Just yeah, kind of similar.
Word. Okay, last one for both of you. And forgive me, might be a bit of a stretch, but because Bounty is such a versatile product and y'all are such versatile people, I want to ask you this question. If you guys weren't professional football players, what would you be? And I'm sure that that is a brutal question, so I will stall a little bit for you guys to think about this. But if you guys weren't in the NFL, what would y'all be doing?
A good question. Uh, yeah, that's a good question. Uh, yeah, that's a great question. I have my degree in psychology, so I would probably be something along. Longfellow is mine. I kind of read it my favorite. Yeah, that's probably good.
Yeah, for me, like I said, I got my degree in retail management. I like to consider myself a business, small business, and things like that sometimes. But yeah, so something probably along those lines, clothing or something like that, fashion design.
Rico, I would think that it would have to do with numbers or something.
You said the what?
I would think you'd have to you would because you're so adept with numbers. I would imagine it would be some sort of math or something like that.
I do love numbers. Right now, I do love numbers.
Bryce, I'm not sure that I mean, there's no reason why you would know this, but the first time I met Rico, I was talking to him and I wanted to get his high school head coach's number, and I said, "Hey, I would love to connect with him." Blah blah blah. And Rico's like, "Oh yeah, I got you." And he just listed off his high school coach's number off the top of his head. He just know he just knows all these like phone numbers in his head, and I'm just like, that's such a like old fashioned trait. Like we don't do that in today's world. So very cool.
I don't know. That's how to say it. Like, I looked your number one time, I better remember it. Like I said, thought of that. That's all I remember.
Nice. Okay, thank you guys so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And we're back. Thanks again to Bryce Young and Rico Dowdle for doing this. Yeah, and shout out Bounty Paper Towels too.
I mean, Bryce Young and Rico Dowdle took turns being the quicker picker-uppers when it came to yardage on the ground at times during the season. So it's only right that they should promote such a brand. And now they'll clean up with some extra contract news, whether it's Rico signing a big deal or Bryce Young having that 5th-year option.
Yeah,
I'm done. I will see myself out.
Did you just say clean up and just like pray that something came to your brain?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's how most of my jokes were. Yes. That's I think
sorry. Go.
Yeah, no, but what I was gonna say is I think what's kind of cool and speaks to the way that these guys bonded. I know it's an advertising thing, but it's pretty cool that Rico and Bryce are doing this together. You can tell that's gonna be a relationship that lasts pretty long. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Well, I thought that I was trying to get ahead of you because I thought you were going to talk about this right now, but you made a good point about Rico. He's going to be a free agent in March if the Panthers don't intervene prior to then. If you're reading the tea leaves right now, Mike, is Rico going to be back in Carolina?
No, there's I would put his return at like a 15%. And it's not because either side doesn't want to work together. It's the reality of the situation. Dave Canales really wants to employ a 2-back system. They just invested a ton of draft capital in Jonathan Brooks and Trevor Etienne. They can't really count on Brooks, but they're past the point where they can pay Rico such a low wage to ball out the way he did. And obviously he's going to want to be front and center as number 1 running back. And that's just probably not in the cards here. I don't know where it'll be elsewhere, but I think he's a guy that a lot of name value and clout has been given to him after this season. Obviously the double pump, the Miami game, the Dallas game, the Packers game. Obviously he whittled down at the end production wise, but I think he's a guy that people will be excited about if he's heading to a new place. I think from the Panthers perspective, they have like around $11 million in salary cap space entering Tuesday, according to Spotrac. So like they'll make some moves and they'll expand that cap space, but to dedicate so much money to the running back position when you've already spent a 2nd-round pick on Jonathan Brooks, 4th-round pick on Trevor Etienne, and oh, by the way, you extended Chuba Hubbard. So it's just a lot of the math is not adding up to a Rico Dowdle reunion in Carolina. And honestly, I think it's to both sides' benefit. Why overpay for a running back who clearly needs the ball as much as he does, but also who kind of waned down the stretch? And then conversely, if you're Rico Dowdle, do you really want to have to grab a job away from Chuba Hubbard again? Do you want to compete for snaps? Do you want to have to be mix and match all the time? I just think it's a clean break, and I think Rico Dowdle more than served his purpose in 2025. Now he's going to go try to cash in and get a multi-year deal.
And that makes complete and utter sense. I feel like we had the same exact conversation last offseason, though, because you had Chuba Hubbard coming off, like, just getting a massive extension. You had Miles Sanders still in the middle of a multi-year deal. Yes, Jonathan Brooks just tore his ACL. There was sort of this premonition that he wasn't going to play in 2025, but, he was still there. And so then, okay, you release Miles, you get Rico back. Okay, you think that's all the Panthers are going to do. And then they spend it was a day 3 pick, but a draft pick nonetheless on
high day 3 pick, a 4th round pick.
Yeah, it was a high day 3 pick on Trevor Etienne. And so, like, Mike, your logic is sound, but I also am just like, wouldn't be surprised. You know what I'm saying? If they go and make some play at free agency, because we kept hearing, oh, they have this stable of running backs, blah, blah, blah. And of course that included my guy, Raheem Blackshear. But so that obviously made a lot of sense to the earnest fan's eye. But for real though, like, I probably wouldn't be surprised if something happens in free agency on the running back market, just because I feel like we've been here before.
Oh, I think for sure they will add a running back in some form or fashion. I don't think that, as I drink my processing blue Gatorade, sorry, it's been a long day, but I'm trying to cut off caffeine this late, because if you've noticed in all of our other podcasts, I constantly like chugging coffee. Anyway, running back, they will definitely add a running back. I don't know if it'll be the draft on day 3. I don't know if it'll be in free agency. Maybe they'll look to get another buy low Rico Dowdle type deal, which I think there are a lot of running backs that are going to come free. Kenneth Walker, obviously, who's playing in the Super Bowl, is the belle of the ball. But there are a lot of running backs available, and I think if you can get a guy for a 1-year, $2 to $4 million contract, you feel good about that. That way you're supplementing the group as opposed to springing it forward. Now, they really like to run the ball, and they really cannot count on Jonathan Brooks. We've talked about this before. Jonathan Brooks returning and playing extremely well would be a huge, huge story and a blessing to the offense. That said, they cannot rely on him whatsoever. They can't pretend like he's part of the plan until he is out there running, because 2 back-to-back ACL injuries on the same knee is a damning situation. He's kept a great attitude. You wrote about it earlier this offseason. Everyone wants him to succeed. And something that I was talking to a lot of people at the Shrine Bowl about is, since we were talking about the Shrine Bowl earlier, we were in Texas where he played, obviously. There is a difference between a bad pick and a bad player. And I'm kind of working my way through this. I think the drafting Jonathan Brooks in the 2nd round was a bad pick. It was. It does not matter what he does the rest of the way through this contract to, if you told me you were only getting 2 years of a 2nd round pick, you would say, wow, that doesn't seem like a worthwhile investment. That said, I still think Jonathan Brooks could be a very good player. And so I think something that we kind of push these guys out. We say this guy's a mistake, or this is a mishap, or this is a bust, or whatever. I think you have to differentiate that. I think Jonathan Brooks drafting Jonathan Brooks in the 2nd round has put them in this situation where they had to bring in Rico, where they had to invest in Trevor Etienne, where they're going to probably have to invest again. The pick is the investment, and it feels like a bad investment. That said, he could go out and have 2 800 rushing yard seasons and still be a productive player. And I think like that's what you have to cling to, right? Is not the value in the investment now, but what does the player do from here? And so I think Jonathan Brooks has a lot of backing on social media. He's got a lot of fans. I think inevitably he could be a very good player. I think they're in a position now because they made a poor choice in general. Or here's what I would say, not even a poor choice. He entered a situation that was not ideal for him coming off that knee injury. They shouldn't have had to play him that first year. They should have managed him better. Maybe things turn out differently, right? is 3 years. I can tell you want to weigh in on this, but 3 years would have been better than 2, right? And I think there is a lot out of Jonathan's control. And I think Jonathan's had the right attitude. I think he's worked really hard. He looks great in practice when we see him. And I'm hopeful that he can do some stuff. But for right now, you have to plan around him being house money, essentially. And I think that's been a frustrating part of this for just like outsiders watching this, anybody who can view this. That said, I think they're very hopeful internally that he is going to bounce back and play very well.
I think it's not that I'm necessarily disagreeing with you in terms of the good pick versus good player conversation, or bad pick versus bad player conversation. I do think if Jonathan Brooks goes out in consecutive seasons with 800, 900 rushing yards and is a factor receiving the ball out of the backfield, which is something the Panthers really need and could really use in a Dave Canales system, I think that it would still ultimately yield to be a good pick. In fact, it was kind of advertised as a really good pick at the time. Yes, every pick is advertised as good at the time, but he was the first running back off the board.
I would also disagree with that. I think there were a lot of people that were like, are you sure you want to take a guy right off? Because he injured his knee so late in his college career. I don't think that that's necessary. I don't know that I agree with that, but go on. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I guess that's fair. Kind of my point was he was the first running back off the board. He was probably going, I mean, again, this is off of biased sourcing because the Panthers ultimately took him, but I think that they had like a pretty, like a mid to late first round grade on him. And then he fell to the second round because of the fact that because of his injury history. And, you know, the Texas head coach was like, yo, this guy is just as talented as other running backs to come through the Texas Longhorns program. And that's pretty high praise considering you got Bijan Robinson there and all these players. So it's like, you know, there are two sides to that. I mean, at the time, what I was hearing was, hey, this is kind of a bargain that the Panthers got him. I understand the injury history, but the fact that they could get a talent like him in the second round is kind of a big deal. And I also think that, you know, 2 900-yard seasons is like pretty special.
But like that's like looking at like a glass totally
right.
half.
That's totally half full. You're correct.
Right. And so I think, I mean, there were other guys that they were interested in that second round when they traded back. Like, let's also add the context that they traded back with the Rams pretty heavily to get that second round pick. That would, like, if you talk about like the whole maneuvering thing, then I think they got added value for that because it was Jonathan Brooks and a second round pick. But they also had to trade up to get him. I'd imagine they had a certain amount of guys on their board. In fact, I know they did. And, you know, like, once those guys come off the board, you got to trade up. And so, look, I think Jonathan Brooks was a quality prospect. I think the environment they brought him into, he's not a bad pick because of him. I think it was the handling, the environment, the ecosystem. I'm not making excuses for him, but a lot of that stuff was out of his control. And I think he's a guy who I think a lot of people have a lot of high hopes for, internally and externally. And you hope that he can get there, but you also can't bet on that. And so I think you have to continue to add to the pot. Look, if he doesn't injure his knee in Philadelphia, they probably don't sign Rico Dowdle. And it's a whole different situation. But I think, again, I'm sure this is going to be turned into Mike doesn't think that Jonathan Brooks can play. And I'm not saying that at all.
I'm not saying that at all.
I'm not criticizing him one iota. I think the situation that he got put into, they were not a good enough team to say, hey, look, we'll take a mulligan for a year on a guy with a knee injury. They eventually needed him to step up because there were injuries at running back. He eventually played. They needed a spark. It happened. They'll learn from it. I would be shocked if they drafted guys that had injury histories before the fourth round again. And listen, look, I think like internally, they are very excited about it. Again, you cannot count on a player coming off 2 ACL injuries. And I actually think I'm more optimistic now than I was, prior to this season. Like, because I've seen him out at practice. He does look terrific. Like, I think he's an excellent complement to Chuba Hubbard. I understand a lot of the logic. I don't think the logic was flawed. I think where he came... I mean, look, we saw there's a whole new strength and conditioning staff in place. Those guys did a really nice job this year. I also think the running back room is a little different. They've developed a young guy in ETN who they feel like they can get the ball to at certain points in games. I think Rico having success gives you the opportunity. Like if Brooks is at full speed, he can play that role, and he can play that role very well. So I think the outlook this year coming in 2026 is much better than it was in 2024 when he was drafted and put into this situation that he was put in.
The Jonathan Brooks story is something that we are going to write a lot about, talk a lot about, debate a lot about. So hopefully everyone sticks with us through that. Mike, before we get out of here, what was the most illuminating thing that you learned from Dan Morgan while y'all were at the Shrine Bowl practices?
So he's talked, there were two things. He's talked a lot about the pass rush.
Mm-hmm.
With me, he talked more about interior guys getting upfield. And I think that's really interesting because that was the original reason they brought in Sean Wharton, who has unfortunately gotten a lot of criticism on this podcast over the last month. To me, he is an up the field sort of play buster. He is a rotational pass rusher who should play 25 to 30 snaps a game at most. Be violent, get in between blocks, get upfield, attack the quarterback. And I think Bobby Brown's a guy who they think has a lot of pass rushing upside. He needs to explore that this season in that rotation. I also think Pat Jones getting injured hurt what they wanted to accomplish on third downs because they wanted to move him inside. Nick Scorton ended up doing that a little bit, but he was so good outside that you couldn't really sacrifice him. So Bobby Brown and Turk Wharton are playing way too many snaps because Bobby Brown, for the most part, is a one-note run defender at this moment as a nose tackle. They weren't ready to put Cam Jackson out in the fray yet. You had Tershawn Wharton coming in and out of the lineup with injuries. You wanted him to play. He's guaranteed $14 million this year. Those guys need to get it, and they need to figure out a better rotation because I'll tell you, this past year did not work. It didn't. And I think they like what they have with Derek Brown. They like what they have in Nick Scorton. They believe in Bobby Brown. They believe in Turk Wharton. They're going to have to figure out A'Shawn Robinson's contract because of the cuttable players, he is like with a red X on him is like the most easy guy to move on from, even though he's played well. But you're going to save around, $8 to $10 million based on what you do. Mm-hmm. And somebody's going to have to make up for that because A'Shawn Robinson was the second most productive pass rusher internally or in the interior. And so I think they're going to really put some investment in this front seven. You can see like in how Dan talks when you talk to him, how much he knows they have to improve in like inside linebacker, outside linebacker, interior defensive line. Like they need to invest and they will continue to invest. And then what do you think of that? And then I'll tell you my second point.
I think that is interesting because all we've heard from Dan Morgan is going on these radio things. And I'm not saying that he is a very honest person, but is also very, chill, laid back. But even he has been very clear. We need a pass rush. And so I think it's when you think of pass rush, you think of the guys on the outside. You think of upgrading from perhaps DJ Wanham, developing Nick Scorton, developing Princely Umanmielen. He did shout out Princely in y'all's interview, which I thought was interesting because while Princely did flash a little bit, he, some people say he didn't have the rookie year that a lot were expecting. I actually thought that he was a bit better in the opportunities given to him. He didn't have a ton, particularly down the stretch. But, you know, so I think it's interesting that that was your main takeaway, considering, like, you know, the Panthers again were a bottom half of the league, maybe bottom quarter of the league pass rushing defense.
They
So
were tied for 30th.
tied for 30th. Well, there you go.
In sacks, at least. Then my other thing was, you know, I posed the question during his press conference about backup quarterbacks and developing them. And a lot of people ran with that and were like, which I got a kick out of. And so that became like a talking point on his talking circuit as he like went through every radio station in
America.
On this, pretty much. So I wanted to follow up with him and ask him what he was looking for in a backup. And I thought what was really interesting is he brought up the mobility aspect. And I think that's really interesting because we saw how stationary and statuesque Andy Dalton was against Buffalo. And I do wonder if they say to themselves, like, you can only really succeed in this offense when you can run bootlegs and move out of the pocket and pick up some yardage with your legs. You also probably want a comparable skill set to Bryce Young, who, as we've seen, while he's not a burner, he's very good with situational running. He's also very good with throwing on the run. And so I thought that was very interesting. Clemson's quarterback, Klubnik, I thought he showed some really nice mobility. He was easily the best quarterback there at the Shrine Bowl. But now I'm kind of intrigued by some of these mobile guys. And it's like, it'll be interesting piecing together what they're looking for, because maybe they just look for a younger veteran in free agency too. I mean, I don't know that it's a sure thing that Andy Dalton's gone. He's guaranteed $2 million this year. But if I were a GM and I was talking as freely about adding a backup quarterback, I would think that Andy would at least be a tad concerned about his status moving forward. They don't have a lot of avenues to save salary cap space. I think they save like $3 million or $2 million if he's released. It's really interesting. Like, I think they've been very open and honest about the backup quarterback thing, more so than I thought they would be when I originally asked the question. Mm-hmm. And so I'm interested to follow that. Obviously, Bryce has got his 5th-year option picked up, so it's not like he's got to look behind his back. He obviously has got 3 years in the league now, and so he doesn't necessarily need that sort of older brother, fatherly, whatever figure you want to call him.
Were you about to call Uncle Andy?
Oh, I mean, I think he's 14 years older than him, if I'm not or 13 years older than him. I've got to do the math at some point. But I think that there is a push internally to really let this be Bryce's QB room, that it's Bryce's offense and everything like that. Like, you don't need the older guy kind of weighing in or being a sounding board. And I'm interested to see how they kind of reestablish the offense, because I do think I think there needs to be some sort of change, whether it's an extra voice in the room, whether it means they focus more on Bryce's strengths, whether it means something with play calling. Like, I think there does need to be some sort of change. I don't have the answer. Like, I'm not going to be the smartest guy in the room here. They can figure it out. They're paid a lot to do so. But I do think there does need to be some sort of systematic change to the way they operate as an offense, because they finished 27th in points and 27th in yardage. And those are two big marks, especially as you're in year 2, because Bryce improved, but the offense took a step back. And I know there's a lot of young guys in that room, but I would like to see some sort of evolution there, because when you watch tape, guys are getting open. I think the scripting is really good by Brad Isaac. I think at times when they're in their bag, Dave can really call some good sequencing, but too often the sequencing is just like, I know this is also a listening.
I was about to say that.
Like, I fluttered my hands around like a butterfly and did some flash dance sort of movements. Yeah, I think that's the best way to kind of explain that.
Well, so I just looked this up while you were talking. Clemson quarterback Cade Klubnik currently projected as a day 3 pick.
Yeah, you want to look in the day 3s. They had some interest in some day 3ers last year, I believe. And so that way the pressure's not on. You don't have a bunch of guys calling for, the Jack Plumbers of the world or whatever. I think that's the best way to do it. And, we've really not seen Dave Canales develop a young quarterback, right? Like,
well, right.
Worked with, yeah, but I mean, like from scratch, a guy that he picked. There was, obviously, Bryce was already here for a year, developed habits. Baker came to Tampa with habits. Gino had been in the league for years. Russell had been in the league for years. So it would be kind of nice to see what Dave's ideal quarterback, or at least quarterback style, would be.
Very much agree. Anything else before we get out of here, Mike?
Next week, we are hoping to give you guys an incredible experience. We've got to lock it down. Everything seems to be going well, but you are not going to want to miss next week. If you thought that Bryce Young and Rico Dowdle were huge guests, just you wait. Especially if you have a sense of humor, you will enjoy what we're doing next week. If not, I'll have a backup plan that is similarly funny. I hope you guys are reading the Charlotte Observer. You're subscribing to the Axis Panthers newsletter. And you're doing whatever Alex is about to say, because he's about to give you, the last call here.
Thanks, as always, for listening to our pontifications on all things Panthers with Mike Kaye and myself and our wonderful producer, Zach Dennis. Please subscribe and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts by searching Processing Blue. And if you watch us on YouTube, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell icon to get notified whenever new episodes drop. And finally, please be sure to stick to charlotteobserver.com for all of your Panthers needs. Mike, stay humble, stay creative, and keep processing.
That's a wrap.